Your brain is literally getting tricked to eat about an extra 1.5 meals per day when you eat ultra processed foods. But what's crazy is that's not even the whole story. A new study broke down the insane impacts that eating ultra processed foods has on your body and what it does to your body fat, weight, your hunger, and even just how quickly you eat your food. And considering how much of the US food supply is ultra processed, we really need to talk about it. Let's dive into it. My name's Autumn. I'm a certified clinical nutritionist with my master's nutrition human performance, and today's video is sponsored by Element. More on them in a bit. Okay, so ultra processed foods is also known as UPF. And in fact, some degree of processing is necessary to make food more easy for our body to digest. You can think of processed foods like cheese or making sauerkraut or kimchi or even literally cooking your food. All of that is considered processed foods. The only food that is considered whole food is when a food is in its natural, whole, original form. So literally like just a piece of steak that has not actually been cooked yet, that is considered whole food. But as soon as you cook it, it is now considered processed. But then we go next step further, and that's ultra processed foods. Ultra processed foods uses either ingredients or processing or both that you can't really do in your regular kitchen. You'll often find seed oils, artificial flavors, food dyes, all of these things that you would not really find in your normal kitchen that are going to be in ultra processed foods. And these foods are drastically on the rise. It makes up about 60% of an average adult's diet, as well as about 70% of a kid's diet. And it's literally everywhere. But people will tell you, well, a calorie is just a calorie. So as long as you just don't overeat those foods, then you're going to be fine. But what this study found is that is just simply not the case. So here's what the study did. First of all, the participants were in a hospital. So that means that it was a controlled environment. They could control and examine exactly how much and what type of food people are eating, as well as how much or how little they were exercising. That makes this study, even though it was with a small group of people, actually really high quality, because a lot of other nutrition studies are either just looking at general trends or they just simply can't account for all of the other factors in our life. So this study took those individuals in the hospital and broke them up into two groups. They had the first group be the ultra processed food group and the other group be the non-ultra processed food group. They had each group eat that way for 1 week, and then they had each group eat their normal diets for 2 weeks. This is considered a washout period so that you don't get confounding results. And then what's really good is that they actually switched the groups. So you could see the impact of those ultra processed foods as well as the less processed foods on both groups. The way they tracked the food is that they let each group eat as much of the food as they wanted. So that means they ate ad libitum, which is again going to mimic regular day life. Nobody's following you around telling you how much you can eat. Like, you are able to eat as much as you want in regular life. So it's really important that studies do this too. But what's great is that they actually match the processed foods as well as the less processed foods according to calories as well as macronutrients. So they were allowed to eat as much as they want, but the meals that they were offered all have the same amount of calories and the same macronutrient breakdown. So the same protein, fat, and fiber. They were just simply offered about 6,000 calories worth of food per day, and they could choose how much and which type of food they wanted from what was offered. So it was a very controlled study, and they were able to track how much they ate, how their weight fluctuated, as well as different markers like their hunger hormones, and even how quickly they ate, which is also a very important factor, as you'll soon find out. And again, the results were mind-blowing. But before we get into that, I want to give a huge thank you to today's sponsor, Element. Element is an amazing electrolyte company that was specifically created with intermittent fasting as well as whole food eating in mind. It actually contains sodium, magnesium, and potassium to help balance out lost electrolyte levels, all without having any sugar. And especially when you switch to eating more whole foods, it's actually hard to get electrolytes in. Highly processed foods have a lot of sodium, but whole foods don't have very many electrolytes. And having low levels of electrolytes can make you feel low energy or headachy. This is often why I've seen people, when they switch to eating more whole foods, will experience some of those side effects. It's usually from an electrolyte imbalance. So I love using Element. I've been using Element for years. I eat mostly a whole food diet, and I found that I use anywhere between 1 to 2 elements per day to make sure I'm getting my electrolytes in. And Element makes it so easy because they taste so good, all without having any sugar. My absolute favorite flavor is their grapefruit salt, but right now they also have their limited release chocolate medley, and each box comes with 10 chocolate raspberry, 10 chocolate chai, and 10 chocolate mint. These are really great with hot water to replace other sugary chocolate drinks while still getting your really important electrolytes in. It's perfect for those cold nights when you want to cozy up with a little treat that is also in line with your wellness goals. And right now, Element is offering my viewers a free sample pack with any order. That's 8 single-serve packets free with any Element order. It's a really great way to test out all 8 flavors, so you can get yours at drinkelement.com/autumn. It is only available through my link, so make sure to check out DRINKLMNT.com/autumn. The link is also in the description down below. Okay, so there were 6 major results from this study that will greatly impact your day-to-day life. The first is that the ultra-processed food groups chewed a lot less. Now, this might seem like this shouldn't matter much, but what this translates to is that people ate more calories per minute or more grams of food per minute, which resulted in eating nearly 20 extra calories per minute. Ultra-processed foods are highly processed, which means that you don't actually have to chew them very much in order to eat it. And chewing is very important for digestion. That's where our carbohydrate digestion starts. We have these enzymes within our mouth that actually start to break down carbohydrates, and that really only kicks in when we're able to chew enough to release those enzymes. So digestion is going to be hindered in that sense. But on top of that, we're able to eat so much more food with the ultra processed foods before any type of satiety hormone could actually kick in because we're eating so quickly. Okay, the second thing the study found is that the ultra processed food group ate on average 813 more calories per day. That is about 1.5 extra meals per day. And keep in mind, both groups were able to eat as much as they want. It's just that when people eat more ultra processed foods, they're more hungry, and so they eat more of it. And interestingly, the study found that people started to eat more and more as the day continued, probably because they are still hungry because they didn't eat enough early on. So it showed that they ate about 118 calories more at breakfast, 233 more calories at lunch, and then 373 more calories at dinner. And then their snacks were about an extra 118 calories. And as a result, the third thing happened, which is in 1 week, they gained 1.1 kilograms, which is equivalent to about 2.4 pounds. And all of that weight was purely from fat, not from water weight, but from fat. That is a pretty significant amount of body fat to gain in just 1 week, especially when you extrapolate that out over a month. That's about 10 pounds of pure fat that's gained from eating mostly ultra processed foods in just 1 month. Which, when you think of the holiday season, which we're currently in, there's a lot more ultra processed foods. It's like 3, maybe even 4 months of eating a lot more ultra processed foods. So there's like Halloween with all the candy, Thanksgiving with the pies and other processed foods, and then Christmas with things like cookies and cinnamon rolls. And if we just stuck to each of those single days as like, okay, we're having those as treats, it's an ultra processed day, like that's okay. It's just 1 day out of each of those months. It's not going to totally reverse your progress. However, what has happened is that this whole season has really become the ultra processed season. Like every weekend, there's different parties leading up to it. Maybe there's like some type of fall party or going apple picking. And so you guys get like pumpkin spice lattes that have about 40 grams or 50 grams of sugar in it. Or maybe there's a Christmas cookie swap, and then you have like a work holiday party, and then you have Friendsgiving. Like there's all these things that go back to back to back, plus all the treats that are just so much more available during this time at the grocery store that are increasing temptations. It doesn't just turn into like 1 day out of the month. It turns into the entire 3, if not 4 months out of the year where ultra processed foods are eaten in such higher quantities, which not only can that completely reverse a lot of weight loss or wellness progress, but it can really set up bad habits because ultra processed foods have been found to have addictive like qualities. Now, with that whole tangent, number 4, they also found that the ultra processed food led to lower peptide YY. So peptide YY is one of our satiety hormones. It's the hormone that mostly gets raised when we eat more protein. When it goes up, it tells our brain we're full, we're satisfied, and we don't need to eat. So even though the group that was eating ultra processed foods was eating significantly more food and calories, they actually were less satisfied. Which makes sense because number 5, the ultra processed food group ate a lot less protein. This is even though the meals were evenly matched for macronutrients. So the meals all had the same amount of protein, but when we choose more ultra processed foods, people tend to choose more of the fat and carbohydrate rich ingredients instead, which of course protein is so important for raising satiety, preventing cravings, which is probably one of the reasons why with ultra processed foods we tend to eat so much more, because these foods are so low in protein. And the 6th is that they ate a lot less fiber. In fact, the ultra processed food group ate about 16 grams less fiber than the less processed food group, which is a lot. And fiber is needed for a healthy gut microbiome. It's needed for that diversity of the gut microbiota. But fiber is also important for stimulating satiety as well as helping to raise GLP-1, which is another one of the satiety hormones. So by decreasing the protein and decreasing the fiber, both of those are going to make it so that you're more hungry and more likely to overeat, as we see in this study. Now, like I mentioned, it's not like you have to totally always get rid of these foods forever, but we have to understand the impact that these foods have on our body and our life, as well as just the pure addictive quality they can have. The occasional treat, like with Halloween, like with Thanksgiving, isn't going to totally reverse your progress. However, when we make them habitual, that's when we start to see a lot of issues. In fact, ultra processed foods foods even goes against like 1920s nutrition advice, which I just recently shared a video all about that. It's so important. You need to check it out with this video right here. Also, if you're new to my channel and you love this science-backed information, make sure you subscribe right here. Come out new videos every Tuesday and Thursday. All right, guys, thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in my next video.